Our guest today is John Kravchonok, who came to Green Spring in 2017, and he and his wife Trish live in Oak Hill. He grew up in the Air Force, but made the Army his career. Welcome, John. It's a pleasure to have you on Who's Who.
Great, thank you very much for having me.
Whoa,
I really question your wisdom in asking you to be here, but that's
we'll
fine.
see as we go along whether or not it was wise. If it weren't, then maybe we'll just cut it, but I don't know. I think we'll find it's going to be an interesting program.
Can you edit out the stupid stuff I say?
No, you can't edit out anything.
Okay.
We're live, John.
Okay, going to be a problem, but it's all right.
We've got our TV audience out there watching. Whatever we say, they're going to hear.
All righty.
And whatever we do, they're going to see. So.
We'll try to clean it up.
Well, I'd like to start out with your immediate family. You have a couple of children. Tell me about them.
Trish and I have 2 children. Our oldest is Catherine. We call her Pippi, for short for Pipsqueak, and our son Peter. Our daughter lives in Washington, D.C. Well, she lives in Arlington, but works down in D.C. She's with the federal government. Currently, she's the acting CIO of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
CIO, that would be information officer.
Chief Information Officer for the Consumer Financial Protection.
Now, what in the world is that?
The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a federal bureau that was started up, I believe, after the recession because of some of the things that went on with banking and some of the products that got everybody in control. It regulates that.
I think there was a problem on the one who's the director of it. Didn't President Trump have problems with getting that filled? Isn't that the organization?
That is the organization, and there's an acting director of it right now. His current chief of staff, or acting chief of staff, was Mulvaney, I believe his name is, was the most recent appointed head of that bureau, but moved on to the White House.
So that's her job in that agency.
She's in that agency and has been there for a little bit.
And what does Peter do?
Peter is a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy.
So, well, your dad was in the Air Force and you were in the Army, and so your son is in the Navy, huh?
If I could have gotten my daughter to go in the Marine Corps, we would have had them all covered.
Or the Coast Guard.
Well,
but the Marine Corps was really the...
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. But she said no, Dad.
Maybe you'll have a grandson go in the Marine Corps.
We can see about that. No grandchildren yet.
Well.
But hope springs eternal.
That's right.
But I'm not allowed to talk about that.
All right. I'm not allowed to talk about that. All right. Well, so one lives around here, and Peter's in the Navy off somewhere.
Yeah, he just returned from a year in Korea.
Okay.
And he was working with the Army in the headquarters U.S. Forces Korea. And now he's returned to Patuxent Naval Air Station, where he's just gone into the acquisition business.
Oh.
He was a pilot for the first 12 years of his naval career, and is just now transitioning into...
acquisition, that sounds a little like logistics, too, huh?
Yeah, well, it runs in the family, I guess.
I see, okay.
A little bit of logistics.
Let's just talk about that later, but what about your folks? What did your dad do?
Well, my dad started out his career in the Army Air Corps.
Okay.
During World War II, and then transitioned in '48 to the Air Force. Stayed in the Air Force, Army Air Corps and Air Force for 26 years. Retired and moved up to Lake Tahoe. But we followed him all over the world.
Well, you must have had some interesting places that you lived.
Yes.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Loved
England.
Yeah.
Lived there as a child.
Okay.
And
how long did you stay in England?
We were there for 3 years.
Okay. How old were you?
Oh, I was 10 and 11 years old.
Okay.
At the time.
Good
And a great
age.
time.
Yeah.
Anywhere you've lived, if you had a reasonably good childhood, when you're 10 or 11 years old, it's just, it's probably where you make some of your best childhood memories.
What's another place that you remember?
We lived in California, lived in Washington, D.C., Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. My dad was at Clark in the Philippines, and I was just a little bit too young to remember it. Most of my memories of the Philippines are kind of secondhand, things that old family motion pictures and photographs and that type of thing bring back memories of the Philippines. But I was pretty young.
Well, where did so you went to elementary school all over the world?
All over the world.
Even in England, you were?
I was in the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
You know, when we arrived there, and came back, was in the 5th or 6th grade when we.
But so all your other schooling was here in the country and elementary.
Yeah. I at one time I had a count of how many different elementaries and high schools I attended, and my father retired just as I was going into high school.
Oh, okay.
And so I got to finish high school in one place, and I think the most interesting aspect of my high school career, which was pretty boring, was that I traveled 35 miles a day to go to high school. Rode a bus.
My 3 daughters each had 3 different high schools.
That's tough.
So
that's
it was
tough in high school.
Them, yeah.
You know, it's tough to make friends.
You traveled 35 miles?
35 miles each way. And when the pass closed and we had to go around, it was 70 miles each way.
So you were on the other side of a mountain?
Yeah, we were on the other side of the mountain.
So you went from Lake Tahoe over to Reno?
To Reno. The closest high school in Nevada was in Reno.
Oh, is that right? How many students there?
The high school or that rode the bus?
High school. No.
The high school. My graduating class was 200.
Okay.
So the high school was.
So they were able to gather enough folks from around to Reno High School to have a decent.
Oh, sure.
Much larger than mine. Mine was only 63. So.
Oh, high school. No, high school. Reno by that time was reaching a population. It was no longer the biggest little city in the world.
This was about 65, 66.
Yeah, it was 68 is when I graduated, so it was 64, 65. Yeah. And Reno was becoming a town of 100,000 plus, which I don't think anybody ever figured that would happen in Nevada. But
yeah, I drove through Reno in 66. Pulled a trailer through
it. Glad you made it through the desert. So many didn't, you know.
Well, we did. We pulled it all the way from California to New York back to Kansas. So. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, it was a great place to grow up in Nevada, number one, and Lake Tahoe especially.
Yeah.
You know, it's like paradise.
So you got to do water skiing?
Water skiing, snow skiing.
And snow skiing, too.
Yeah. There was time and a season for just about everything.
Well, wasn't Lake Tahoe kind of cold?
I think the temperature of Lake Tahoe probably remains about 70 degrees, summer or winter.
Is that right?
Well, it's such a large body of water that it's hard to influence, you know, that change that temperature.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm convinced there are hot springs that come into the lake. I've never found one, but I'm convinced there are. There's certainly thermals in the lake, and the light everywhere there's a beach, it heats it up, and that heats up the rest of the lake. But it's so big that the temperature stays constant.
Now, Lake Tahoe wasn't as big then as it is now. Hasn't it grown up tremendously around the lake?
From the mid-'60s, there has been a great effort to curtail the growth around the lake. But you're absolutely correct. Yeah. Lake Tahoe was not unheard of, but there was no population there to speak of until my great uncle, bought property up there in the 1930s.
And he started it, huh?
Yeah, he started. Yeah, it's all his fault. But he sold a restaurant in Reno and moved up to Lake Tahoe to open another restaurant, and that became the family property up there. And there's been a great effort to keep the lake pure, clean, and recreational. They just, a friend of mine called me the other day from Reno to tell me they just opened a path around the eastern shore of the lake. It runs for about 3 miles. And I got on and saw a video of it. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's open to the public. It's not privately held. You can still get up to the lake shore, even though you don't own $1 million property there. And that's
now, what about
you
had some brothers and sisters?
Oh, my brother still lives at Lake Tahoe.
Oh, okay.
And still a place called Incline Village, and is still there. And my sister moved with her family and raised them in Redding. She's since passed.
Where?
Redding, California.
Oh, okay.
And she's since passed. So there's just my brother and I. Okay. And he's married, but no kids.
Okay, well, so you didn't have any sports in high school because you traveled the bus.
You had to be pretty dedicated.
Yeah.
to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to school, and then stay after school to play a sport, and then drive 35 miles back.
Well, you had to get back. So
Yeah, you had to get back somewhere, and the bus wasn't running after practice.
And your dad probably wasn't
not inclined to drive down there and pick me up.
Of course, he was retired by then.
Yeah, he was.
So,
but that just didn't happen. But there's, it's not like we were deprived because we lived all the way up at Lake Tahoe.
I'm sure.
It was pretty good times, okay?
There probably were envious kids in Reno who of you because you lived in Tahoe.
I didn't realize that until I stayed in Reno to go to college.
Yeah. And
kids that I had gone to high school with for 3 years, but I didn't know them because there were 18 of us that the minute that last bell rang, we got on that bus and we drove 35 miles back home. And so there was very little interaction. And it turned out that I ended up going to college I went to college for many years, but I was on a slow program.
I see.
But who became friends of mine in college. Yeah. And we got to talk about that very point. And they said, well, we thought all you kids were rich who lived up at Lake Tahoe. And I said, you got to be kidding me.
So there were 18 of you that rode this bus?
Yeah, 18 kids that rode that bus.
So you were pretty close, I would think.
Oh, we were, yeah.
You were friends with them over?
You get pretty close. In fact, I was at my 50th high school reunion a year ago and rekindled a friendship with one of my best friends in high school. And yeah, it's
I found the 50th to be the best reunion in high school.
Absolutely.
It was great.
It's my best.
And also in college,
Oh, I'm waiting for 50
You're waiting
years.
for that.
Yeah, I'm waiting. Well,
right.
Sneaking up right away.
It'll be a good one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you graduated from high school, and then you went to the University of
Nevada in Reno.
Nevada and Reno.
Now there are two University of Nevadas.
Okay.
And one is University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and then the real one is the University of Nevada, Reno.
Yeah, that's the real one.
Yeah, that's the real one.
We want to get that. We want to make sure that
I'm
we get
kidding.
That. How big is the one in Las Vegas?
Bigger than.
Well, you have 18,000 now.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that big when I went there. It was about 4,000. But I do not keep track of which one's gotten bigger, but Vegas does everything bigger. Yeah. So I would assume that I think they, in the state system, the university system, I think that when they were divvying things up, we got the state law school and they got the medical school. Oh. So I really don't know how that worked out.
Well, when I looked it up on the website, I see that you had 145 different programs for majors at the University of Nevada in Reno. Yeah. And also, what really impressed me is that you had the largest program for Basque studies. It's interesting that college or universities have these, and for University of Nevada to have the largest center for Basque studies. Now, everybody knows what Basque means, I'm sure. Tell us what Basque means.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. The Basque region, Basque, as I understand, is an ethnic group that comes out of the Pyrenees Mountains on the border between France and Spain. Right. And they have, I don't know if they speak Catalan, but they have their own dialect and it's a combination of French and Spanish from what I understand. But it's a very unique and a discrete area that's well defined culturally and physically. But many of them picked up and moved to Nevada. Oh. And they're throughout Nevada. They're obvious Basque families and centers of Basque culture. I hadn't really been aware that they had started a program in Nevada, but at the university. But it doesn't surprise me at all. My high school French teacher, her name was Laxalt, and that was a Basque name. Oh. And her brother-in-law was the governor of Nevada. Oh. And also a Basque family.
Well, the governor Laxalt, now he came back to he was in Washington too.
He was I believe he became a senator.
I think so, yeah.
And Senator Laxalt. Yeah. And,
So you know the Laxalt family.
No, yeah, right. Yeah, she gave me my first F in high school in French. No, she was a wonderful teacher, as I remember.
Great. Well, that was impressive because to find at the University of Nevada the largest center of Basque studies in the country.
I would imagine that it's one of the larger concentrations of ethnic Basque people that came to the United States.
Oh, is that?
And I've got to stop right now and change something. It's going to sound like I'm correcting you, but I just want to change it. If you live there, it's Nevada.
What, and I say Nevada?
And you say Nevada.
Oh, Nevada.
Well, that's just
Soft
if you live there.
All right.
You don't have to change it.
Well, I don't know if I can. You know.
No, probably not. Don't worry about it.
All right.
You bring up the Basque Studies, but the University of Nevada is where University of Nevada, Las Vegas is somewhat well known for its entertainment programs and majors. University of Nevada, Reno, before diversifying so much, was a school of mines.
Oh, okay.
And it is, I won't say world famous, but it's well known for its school of mines.
It competes with Colorado, then, I presume.
Absolutely. I think that's the other one that's well known in this country.
All right. Well, what was your major in college?
I had a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a concentration in economics. Okay. So that really set me up for a career in the Army.
But so you were in the ROTC there?
ROTC.
The big ROTC program.
I was the cadet commander of the ROTC brigade.
Great.
Yes. That didn't raise my paycheck when I finally got in the Army.
No, but it gave you probably a lot of experience in leading or in managing the group that it wasn't necessarily easy.
No, but it was.
But it was something that you were able to do.
It was nice to be asked to do something in your college career that suggested somebody thought you were going to do something all right.
Oh, I think it's great. Okay, well, you graduated then in 73. 73.
Yep. Took a commission as a second lieutenant in the infantry.
Okay.
And went on to beautiful Fort Riley, Kansas.
So how long were you at Fort Riley?
2 years, and then.
And you were a platoon leader, I presume?
Yeah, I was.
Different assignments?
Several different types of platoons. Yeah. I was a straight mechanized rifle platoon leader, a weapons platoon leader, and then I became the support platoon leader, which is where I got saddled with the title of being a logistician, and that kind of stuck with me the rest of my career. You can't get that one. You can't scrub that one off.
Can't get rid of it either.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Fort Riley, where did you go from there?
Fort Riley, I left to. There was a recruiting effort because of the bicentennial.
Okay.
To bring folks to the Old Guard in Washington, D.C. The Old Guard is the ceremonial unit in Washington, D.C., and many of your viewers and many of the residents here in
I'm sure most everybody knows about the Old Guard.
What the Old Guard is.
And it's usually a sort of a prestigious unit to be in.
You get to see people who have some notoriety and are famous. Yeah. I always think of it as being the window dressing on it, but it is an honor. But I found my entire career to be kind of an honor.
What was your job in the Old Guard?
Oh, I started out as a platoon leader, became the executive officer of a company, then I became the adjutant. That's the guy that stands out there and tells everybody to stand attention, the colonel's coming.
So you were in the parades?
Oh yeah, did the parades and all that type of stuff. And
I really enjoyed watching the parades at Fort Myer.
They do a good job.
Old Guard. Oh, they do a beautiful job.
Have you ever been to the 8th and I to watch the Marine Corps do their evening parade?
Yes, I have.
That's just spectacular.
It is. Yeah.
So all of the services maintain a ceremonial unit here in Washington, D.C. They're doing an absolutely wonderful job at
the Marine is the tattoo, I think they call it. Yeah. No, I've been there, but of course, having been Army, and I've seen a lot of retirement ceremonies, where we have a great ceremony. So and to me, you really need that shot every once in a while.
Yeah, it does bring a tear to your eye, doesn't it?
It does.
You're probably aware that field where you watch those parades, that's called Summerall Field. Yeah. And it is, besides being where they hold those parades at Fort Myer, it is famous for a couple other things. It is where the Wright brothers
It is.
did their first
For
flight.
their first flight, the Army
For
flight.
demonstrating the airplane to sell it to the United States Army.
1909, I think it was, somewhere like that.
You're about right. Oh, 7 or 9.
Lieutenant Selfridge was killed
Yeah.
in that time frame.
Yeah. And at the far end of the field is where they buried the ashes of Blackjack, which Blackjack was the last horse that bore the U.S. Army brand.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and he's buried out there. He was the caparison horse at Kennedy's funeral.
Oh, is that right?
The horse where the riderless horse where they turned the boots backwards.
Yeah.
That's the caparison horse, and he's buried on that field.
Okay, we got to move on here.
Yeah, I understand.
So from there you went. There you met your future wife. Too.
I met Trish. We dated for only 5 years, and I took off, ran away to Korea, and it was there that I realized that she was the right woman for me.
Yeah.
And I came racing back after a year and 14 months in Korea, and I asked her to marry me, and she graciously said yes.
So in Korea, you were what were you?
Oh, I was a logistics officer for an armor battalion.
Yeah.
I commanded a rifle company when I was there, and then had to stay a little longer to do that.
Did you have any other overseas assignments?
We were married, and eventually, after a couple of assignments here in the United States, we took off and went to Germany for, I think we were there 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
Oh. Where did you live there? Wiesbaden? Or?
Wiesbaden. We lived in Wiesbaden. I worked initially in Wiesbaden in a logistics assignment again, but I managed to work my way over to an infantry battalion across the river in Mainz. So I lived in Wiesbaden, but I did have the opportunity to work in Mainz. Mm-hmm. Mainz is notable as the home of Gutenberg. And there's a copy of the Gutenberg Bible.
Oh, is that right?
In the
I've not
library
been to
there.
Mainz.
Mainz is a pretty interesting little town.
Yeah. Okay, so you taught ROTC too.
Oh, that was on the way to Germany.
Oh, is that?
In Starkville, Mississippi.
Oh, Starkville, Mississippi. That's where John Lee taught too. Huh?
Mississippi State University.
Yeah.
A marvelous assignment.
And that's where Johnny Cash spent a night in jail.
In jail.
Yeah, for picking flowers.
For picking, I think he says picking dandelions.
Well, whatever it was.
Yeah, and spent a night in Starkville. Yeah.
Okay, so we all know where Starkville is now.
Yeah, it's really, I think any opportunity to go teach at a university, especially, there are probably many of the Green Spring residents who may have had an experience as an instructor or a professor at a university, but as an Army officer, going to live that lifestyle and have the experience of working with young kids who are interested in learning, it was wonderful.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
Good thing.
Okay, well, what was your most interesting assignment?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I'll bet it is.
Yeah, that is really tough. I've got to say that I did a short stint after the Old Guard, where I was moved across the river to the Military District of Washington. And the Military District of Washington is the umbrella unit that controls Army activities of units, not the Pentagon, but in Washington, D.C. And I worked there in the ceremonies office, coordinating, and because it's the senior service, we coordinated all of the military honor guards. Oh. The Army Band, the Air Force Band, the Marine Corps Band, and scheduled there. They're autonomous, but when the public asks for an appearance from one of those organizations, or a color guard to go march in a parade at the Rose Bowl, they run that request through the MDW ceremonies office. Yeah. And I worked there for several months before moving on to Korea and leaving Washington, D.C. For that part of my career. But that was pretty interesting.
It was probably hectic too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty active.
Yeah,
pretty active, but but more interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, you retired here in
Came back to Washington for...
Were you assigned here before you...
Yeah. Okay. Came back to Washington for the third time in my life, once as a child.
Yeah.
Then again as a second lieutenant, or first lieutenant by then, in the Old Guard, and then again as a lieutenant colonel in the Inspector General's office.
Oh, okay.
Again, Army Material Command. That logistics stamp got me one last time.
So you were down on...
it was down Eisenhower Avenue.
Yeah, Eisenhower Avenue.
Yeah, right. Not a stone's throw from here.
Yeah.
A little bit of a drive, but...
There's nothing in that building now.
Is it they're not renting it or leasing it out anymore?
Okay, so you retired, and you what were some of your interesting jobs?
This is where life gets fun. And I was when you asked that question, what was the most interesting job in your career? Well, you said Army, so I answered it correctly. But I did a couple of things. I worked for a friend as an account executive for a search firm, and I found that, well, frankly, I found it hard to do. Sales is a tough thing, and you've got to be prepared for rejection. I admire anybody who can go out and really be a quality salesperson. Maybe I didn't have it in me, but I gave that up and went to work in the heating and air conditioning industry. Okay. And I finally got an opportunity to put my bachelor or my degree to work in a business environment, and that was a lot of fun for me. Yeah. Did that for about 13 years. Was a manager of a distributorship here in town, and kind of enjoyed that a little bit. Then I retired again, and I also did a turn as an investigator for the federal government right after I lost my microphone.
Yep.
That's probably fortunate.
Well, we're down to 2 minutes.
Well,
and we got to get you into Green Spring.
Got to tell you about the best part of it.
Yeah, okay.
I drove a school bus for 8 years.
8 years.
Absolutely loved those kindergartners.
Oh, is that right?
That was probably the best job. That's the best kept secret for a retirement job.
Being a school
bus.
Is
being a Fairfax County school bus driver. I got to tell you, absolutely love the kids.
Good.
But go on.
All right. Well, let's get you into Green Spring. Why'd you come to Green Spring?
I was brought here, kicking and screaming, by my lovely wife.
Yeah.
And now, after less than 2 years, probably going into 18 months, it was the finest decision we ever made.
And even at your age? I mean, you're a young guy for you.
I wish we'd done it even a little bit earlier.
Oh, is that right?
No. Green Spring is not a old folks' home.
Oh, I don't think so either.
It's a retirement community for people who don't want to be bothered by all that maintenance and all those other things you have to do, that anchor called a house. And we've gotten here, we've been able to we want to go somewhere? Yeah. Tell them at the front desk you're going to be gone for a week, 3 weeks, 2 days, whatever, and go out and have a good time.
Yep, and come back.
And come back, and everything's the way you left it.
That's right. Yeah.
And you didn't have to worry about things. Yeah. There is everything to do here. I'm deeply involved in the wood shop. I have the opportunity to show movies down. I'm a projectionist.
Oh, okay.
Have lots of fun things to do. And my wife, on the other hand, chooses to not do so much and play in go to the fitness center and that type of thing. So you can do as much or as little as you want to do.
Yeah. David Taylor, I hope you're listening to this.
And the food's good too.
It is, isn't it?
And my wife doesn't have to cook.
Well, what about lunch or breakfast?
I'm on my own.
You're on your own. I see. So your wife doesn't have to prepare breakfast or lunch either, huh?
She graciously offers on occasion to make me breakfast.
Okay.
I don't miss many meals, Greg. Not many.
Okay, so you've been involved in woodworking, and you run a projection or do the movies?
On occasion.
Yeah. What else?
Oh, come on.
You been in any committee yet?
Oh, no.
Oh.
I'm not sure anybody I don't play well with others. I'm not sure anybody needs me in a committee.
Well, it's kind of nice to be on a committee because you get to see what goes on a little bit closer than you.
And I'm sure that's not much different than the remarks I made about working at ceremonies and not being in a ceremony, but participating in the organization of it.
That's right.
And the allocation of resources and that type of thing. Yeah, it's got to be interesting.
Yeah. So you've got plenty of years,
There may be a week or two left here.
No,
I'm open.
No, you've got plenty of years here, John, and I'm glad you're enjoying it.
Well, I certainly am.
I've been here now almost 10 years and enjoy it so much.
Yeah, I don't think I've scraped the surface as far as things to do here. Oh. I mean, I'm looking forward to, I've got a list of things that I'd love to do here, and just not enough time to do them all.
Well, you got time.
Yeah, I think so.
You know, living at Green Spring probably adds a number of years to your life because of several things. One, socialization, the fact that you get your meals, the medical's available all the time. All of these things combine to keep you more healthier, more interested, more vital, and at least that's my viewpoint.
Well, I'd have to agree. We've had the opportunity to avail ourselves of pulling the little cord on a couple of occasions, and that is one well-organized operation when you do that. So
Yes.
I am sure that is a great resource and benefit to the residents.
John, thank you very much for being on
Sir?
Who's Who.